What is poppin' squad? Division 2 beta is coming around the corner, and I know a lot of people were excited about the ideas of getting their hands on it, but I know a lot of people who have been playing Division 1 want to know how builds, how weapons, and all that jazz is going to work. So first things first, I'm going to let you know there are going to be build setups. So it's not going to be the same way that we're used to as far as like just put gear sets together and go about your way. You're going to have to take a lot more things into consideration now that there's a lot of different options. One big thing I noticed is a lot of people are worried about like certain things that they can't combat against, especially shock ammo being one of the things people wanted to talk about. So I wanted to pause it right here real quick and knock this out of the way. There is actually a talent called transmission that basically allows you to shock your opponent if you are shocked by something. It doesn't specify, it just says shock. So for the people who just didn't know that there was a direct counter and there's going to be counters in this game because they thought it was going to be so simplified to the point where you can't really counterplay other builds because it's just base, right? Just damage, and that's that. That's what everybody thought it was. But there obviously are talents that do what gear sets you would think are going to do. So you can see, once again, this is called transmission, and basically if you get shocked, you shock your opponent as long as they're in 10 meters. So you can see that this is a talent that's activated even when the weapon isn't even in use. So it's just having it on you is like having a perk. So this opens up a lot of interesting things that I can see. Different builds, if there are a lot more talents like this, I can see that builds are going to be based around weapon talents now specifically. And that's just a quick little insight real quick. I definitely wanted to cover that because that caught my attention instantly. You see I spent a lot of time just looking at it right here because I was just going crazy talking about it. So let me tell you guys how builds are going to work if the gear sets don't end up coming. Like I'm not sure, they haven't specified, I don't know. They probably will eventually come, but as of right now it's going to be like a hexo meta where you're going to have pieces of gear that do one certain thing and then you mix and match together, which is the most favorable one. Obviously, people love that kind of meta back in the mix and match hexo meta. So now that we're going to have all kinds of different options with skills and stuff, being that we're not going to necessarily have skill power roll, I mean, like as a main thing, I don't think that it's going to be like you just spec into all electronics like sticky builds and all that stuff. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be kind of based off of the buffs and stuff you get off of your immediate gear set, and then mix and matching that with whatever talents we have. So I know destructive, for the people who want to ask about the sticky bomb build type thing, the only thing I saw is destructive, instead of doing enemy armor damage, now it does explosive damage. So I can kind of see if there's other talents that spec into that, or if we end up finding something out about certain pieces that do certain things. As of right now, it's not too clear how the main stats are going to be done. We didn't get to go that deep into it, but as far as I can see, at least you have a lot more options that are pretty much self-explanatory that you can kind of mix and match depending on your playstyle. Like I'm pretty sure there's going to be like armor shredder builds, there's going to be health shredder builds where there's going to be weapons where you focus on taking the armor and then switch into like a health damage weapon that finishes it off, and then obviously your specialist weapon and being able to capitalize on that. So as far as crit damage, crit chance, headshot damage, that stuff's all coming back. So obviously for you DPS babies, you guys can definitely spec into that. Headshots are extremely viable in Division 2, so that's something you want to look towards building if you want to be a complete monster as far as shredding. But take in consideration that you're going to have to deal with armor, and armor calculates damage differently than your health. So if you want to fully capitalize on your build, obviously one thing you're going to want to have to spec into is armor damage of some form and health damage afterwards, not necessarily just crit or crit chance or crit damage or whatever. You want to be able to take in consideration we now all have to deal with armor. And back in the day, right, back in days of Division, enemy armor damage was definitely something super important. Then it changed to where it didn't really affect that much, but now we're in an armor meta. Obviously armor is going to be the main thing that keeps people alive, because even without crazy rolls on your health, people are getting beamed as is when that armor is gone. So you have to spec towards that, and you're going to see a lot of different combinations, in which opens up the field where people get to like spice it up in their way. And I like that, especially because now that you can do certain things like combinations off of your like weapon talents and stuff, people aren't going to know immediately what you're running unless you pretty much tell them at that point. One thing in Division 1 that ended up being like just understood is you can pretty much read a player by what they're wearing, right? Like right now, if you see a Banshee build, you know they're not running around with 10k stamina. You know they're squishy. Or if you see a Tactician build, you know they're squishy. You know what I'm saying? So that you play differently based off that. this game is more mysterious in that manner, especially if you're going to synergize weapon talents into builds. You're going to be able to kind of like have a non-predictable setup that people aren't going to expect unless you let them know. Like, they're not going to know what the main role of your build is and how to counter it until, you know, they study it and try to find whatever the combinations are, or unless you tell them and give it away. So I like that a lot because it keeps everybody on their toes. You have to like adapt based off of what you have issues with, and that's that. So as far as my build videos and what I'm gonna make, I'm definitely gonna go super in depth off of weapon talents, because I see weapon talents are the new gear set talents in my opinion. If that transmission type talent has a lot of other like siblings in that nature, because the transmission talent is always active even if you're not using it. So that's basically like let's say you had a buff that gave you reload speed and you didn't have to have your weapon out. That's basically a gear. That's like having a gear piece that gives you a buff just by having it on your weapon. So you can pretty much, like, let's say you have a side weapon you don't use. Let's say you focus on your primary weapon and your secondary weapon is just 3 talents that all give you buffs no matter what. Dude, that's like stacking all into one weapon in your build. So hopefully, I hope they have a lot more talents like that. I like that idea way better because it gives you a lot more options and it gives you a lot more chances to feel like accomplished when you do get a God roll weapon. God roll weapons are definitely going to be like the true end game for people, because now if you're not handed a gear set that automatically gives it to you, you have to find the perfect weapon that has the perfect rolls that goes perfectly with your build, and that kind of opens up the spectrum to having that feeling we liked when loot dropped. So as far as how builds are going to work, as of right now, other than the fact that obviously it's deep because it's going to be like a hexo type meta, the biggest thing that I can see potentially is these weapon talent synergies, because that's going to be just amazing when you're, especially if you have like a main weapon you want to use, like let's say you're not a double weapon user, being able to capitalize whatever you have on your gear plus those synergized weapon talents, it's going to be crazy combinations that people can have and a lot of ways to break it. So for me, I see this as a big up as far as builds. At first I was kind of worried that since there weren't gear sets off rip, since we're so used to those kind of things, that making builds is going to be rough. But if anything, it's even deeper. It takes a lot more thought now. Especially if you want to make sure that your agent is good all across the board. So hopefully we get some more reveal of these amazing talents that actually work when your weapon's holstered, and you know, hopefully that's more than none. Like I hope most of the talents are like that, because then that'll actually open up a lot of abilities for players to play the way they want to, instead of just having to focus on one gear set. Like you can pretty much have whatever roles you have in your main gear and then like capitalize on the fact that you have a weapon that does work for you. And imagine if you have 2 weapons that have 6 different synergized, I'm calling them synergized talents because they work with everything. So for me, hopefully synergy talents on weapons are going to be like the main thing, because then you won't be able to pretty much guarantee you know what the person's running, and it kind of opens up different weapons, especially if there's certain synergized talents that work with different types of weapons, and that's going to kind of open up the spectrum for builds. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys more excited about the idea that you get to have your build gear that gives you certain buffs and weapons that give you buffs towards your overall character, or did you like the classic style where it's just pretty much cookie cutter talents that only go towards like your weapon damage or certain things that involve your weapon? I like the idea that it's outside utility. I like utility stuff, so being able to have that is definitely exciting for me. Definitely something that I'm looking forward to, and I think I'm gonna have a crazy amount of builds to be putting out, especially when I start finding which talents work the best with whatever talents I end up finding. So let me know what you guys think. I think it's gonna be good. If you disagree, let me know why. If you feel like it's going to be an issue, explain yourself. Let me know if you feel that it's kind of OP that you can pretty much have a talent that works all the time versus having to have your weapon out. I want to know. I really do, because build videos are that's my bread and butter. I love helping the community out with stuff I discover by trying to break everything. And I feel like if there are talents that are synergy that work with skills, skill builds are definitely not dead. So don't worry about that. I'm pretty sure there are going to be some. And just imagine if you're able to stack 6 talents that are all working together no matter what. So that's something to look forward to. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Be excited for the build videos. Your boy is out.